It's Thursday, the 27th of October, and you're listening to the GameGrin GrinCast. I'm your host, Hamiltonius, and tonight the gang's all here. Well, three of them anyway. I'm joined by Ace.
Hello.
Ubidom.
Hello.
And Dominoid.
Hello.
Got a pretty packed podcast for you today. Games Which Will Suck is coming up in the latter half, but first there's some pretty chunky news to go through. The first of which is that Evolve, our favourite game that appears on the podcast a lot, is no longer going to be developed by Turtle Rock Studios. They're leaving it behind, which means it won't be going free-to-play on console. 2K gets the chance to carry on with it if they want, but Turtle Rock have decided to pretty much to drop everything and leave for the good of their studio, they believe. Which is a bit surprising, because it was doing quite well, free-to-play, well, the Stage 2 was on computer.
Well, actually, 2K have decided that Turtle Rock should move on to something else. And that they will no longer be developing it, but they will be exploring the business model.
Ooh. They haven't completely ruled the Stage 2 stuff coming to console. They've just said that the PC stuff will take priority. So there's an outside chance it might still come there.
There's probably a reason for it. They've probably seen that although there was a dramatic decline across PCs and consoles, they've probably seen that there is more of a market on PC for it. Console gamers are probably, the word free-to-play is a bit dirtier on the console, so they've probably taken that into consideration.
Well, funnily enough, Evolve, the PSN started their Halloween sale, and Evolve is part of it.
There you go.
Hang on, how is it on sale though? I thought it was free.
No, not on console.
Stage 2 is free.
Evolve, I didn't realise it hadn't gone free on consoles. I thought Stage 2 was like an addition to the free-to-play. I stand corrected.
No, Stage 2 is... Everything is now free. Please play our game. Why aren't you playing it? Oh no, now we can't develop it anymore.
On the upside, we will be having a little final send-off on theme night on Friday, I believe, so
That's right.
You can come play with us.
Nah, I'm alright.
Is this really a surprise to anyone that Evolve is sort of...
I was slightly surprised because it was doing rather well. It depends how you define well, but with the free to play, the player numbers had gone up from the hundreds to the tens of thousands, which is a huge increase. But
is it sustaining those numbers as well, though, at the minute, or is that just people jumping?
Probably
on
not now. Well, the thing is that the developers themselves, I believe it's the co-founders, in fact, of Turtle Rock, Chris Ashton and Phil Robb, actually described the DLC strategy of Evolve as a shitstorm. So there's a wonder how many of these decisions were 2K and how many were Turtle Rock. They even say in their letter that this is the life of AAA game developers who aren't self-funded and don't own their IP. We don't get to make the call. So
it's kind of hinting this wasn't our choice, but it's the way things are.
Okay, back in July when they went to Stage 2, the peak of players was 51,000. Over the last 30 days, the peak has been 3,500.
Still better than 100 and something, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's still... I mean, it's a big drop. I think it's probably a case of let's get Turtle Rock onto something else while it's still... not too late. Because let's be honest, a really big failure like that could take the studio under. And this is a studio that's made some really bloody good games. So it's probably time to get them on the next big thing.
Well, as they said in their farewell post, they created Evolve, which was one of 2015's most highly anticipated games. They didn't go on to say that it was highly anticipated and they failed, but it was at the time very highly anticipated.
Everyone anticipated it.
Game On created a Evolve Special Edition.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, it's well, the thing is that I think the Evolve that released was a far cry from what the Evolve in the minds of the creators was. I mean, they left Valve after Left 4 Dead, and then THQ greenlit Evolve, but then THQ went bust, and then they convinced 2K to buy it. So it's not exactly been a smooth ride for them all the way through. So I guess, you know, it might not be the final product they wanted to see happen, but they did load up the hype train with a load of dynamite, essentially.
I think it was one of those games that, considering what it followed on for as well, it's kind of like another big online shooter from the makers of Left 4 Dead and Counter-Strike. It was always going to be difficult to live up to their own hype, so in a way, maybe it's good that Evolve's been a bit of a letdown for them, because it kind of brings them a bit back down to earth, takes some of the pressure off for the next project.
Maybe, although I think there's a chance of people being like, oh, it's from Turtle Rock, remember what they did with Evolve, or I'm not buying anything from them, or, you know. So if I've got this correct, they're still owned by, or rather they're still published by 2K, anything they make in the future, or is 2K basically shoving them out the door?
No, I'm pretty sure they've moved on to another 2K project.
More co-op shooters.
Yeah, surely that'll just be another Left 4 Dead. That's what everyone has been asking for a while. That's what we can expect.
But don't Valve own the IP?
Valve would have to, Valve would have to greenlight that.
Yeah.
Probably something like Vermintide. They'll make something that's a 4-player Left 4 Dead clone with a skin of some sort of franchise on it.
Because we definitely need more online shooters. There's not enough of them. Either that, or maybe they could make a zombie survival game of some kind.
Let's not start that up again. It's just started to die out a little bit.
Oh! How about an open world space game?
I think one of those might have come out already. I'm not too sure though. I think it flew under the radar a little bit.
Some kind of puzzle game where you have to match 3 coloured items together?
Isn't that the end to Mass Effect 3?
It might be. Spoiler alert, I haven't played that yet.
It's, it came out in like 2012, so...
Yeah, but I only bought it in August.
Or 11 even.
I'm really behind. But anyway, Evolve.
I'm Googling it now.
It is a shame. It is quite a shame to see them, to see it sort of fall out like that. But to be fair, if the servers are still up, then it can still be played. So maybe there'll be a big resurgence community, and I don't know. Maybe they'll let modders take over, and it will become an even better game than it ever was.
Hey, speaking of Fallout, Bethesda has taken some flack recently.
See what you did there.
For a recent, I'll read this ad verbatim because I think it deserves to be read out. But a post on the Bethesda website by Gary Steinman, the global content lead, basically titled "Bethesda and Game Reviews." It says, and I quote, "At Bethesda, we value media reviews. We read them, we watch them, we try and learn from them when they offer critique, and we understand their values to our players. Earlier this year, we released Doom. We sent review copies to arrive the day before launch, which led to speculation about the quality of the game. Since then, Doom has emerged as a critical and commercial hit and is now one of the highest-rated shooters of the past few years. With the upcoming launches of Skyrim Special Edition and Dishonored 2, we will continue our policy of sending media review copies one day before release, while we continue to work with the media, streamers, and YouTubers to support their coverage. Both before and after release, we want everyone, including those in the media, to experience our games at the same time. We also understand that some of you want to read reviews before you make your decision, and if that's the case, we encourage you to wait for your favourite reviewers to share their thoughts." And then it says stuff about Skyrim and Dishonored being released this year for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. But defending their new policy to give everyone the game a day before release, well, press anyway, apart from specially paid YouTubers who I imagine will get access to it a few weeks in advance.
I'm okay with them giving it to media one day in advance if they give it to everyone at the same time, rather than you're a high-profile YouTuber. Hey, how about you talk up our game? Here's 500 quid.
Yeah. Or similarly, the game gets released to everyone a day before. Sorry, the game gets given out to media a day before release, but big media get to come to a special preview event in our offices for a day and play the game, and then you can write your review off of that.
Obviously, being writers for a small site doesn't make us in any way bitter about this at all.
I mean, either way, I don't think that I personally think it's a bad way. Well, it's a good way to do business for Bethesda, but I think it's bad for the industry that certain large websites get to see games before others. Certain large websites that may have large advertising budgets that are paid for by said developers. But it's just a bit of there's a bit of narcissism in there a little bit. Just like, you all doubted us with Doom and you've been proved wrong, so ha ha ha. Well, people aren't too enamored with Fallout 4, are they really? So
yeah, but Fallout 4 came out to media before release.
That's true.
And so they waited with Doom, and then that got great reviews. So obviously it was the way they sent it to media. That's what made the difference.
It's not how they developed the game.
No, don't be stupid.
And to be fair, I don't think Bethesda have ever released anything that I can think of that's been like a real stinker. So, I'm not sure what they're so worried about.
Well, you'd have some people that argue that Fallout 4 was relatively under par to what they expected.
Yeah, but that's kind of like saying the Blaze Bayley era Iron Maiden albums weren't as good as the rest of them. They're still Iron Maiden albums. They're still fucking excellent. They're just not as good. I think sort of a bad Bethesda game is generally still better than a good game from a lot of other developers.
Lots of humming from me. I don't know. I persevered with Fallout 4 through sheer fanboyism alone, but it was a severely underwhelming game. But it's very high and mighty, this sort of approach, and it's I think it rubs people up the wrong way.
Did you buy Fallout 4 simply because you're a fan, or did you wait and see reviews? Because what I'm thinking is Bethesda are quite a well-established publisher with a number of IP that people appreciate. So when the next, Elder Scrolls is set for release, the fact that reviewers aren't going to have it until the same time that, the consumers will, that's not really going to affect sales, because you're going to buy Elder Scrolls if you love Elder Scrolls, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I think the hypocrisy comes down to it is that companies like Bethesda want it both ways. Like, they want the whole, we'll wait and see until the game comes out kind of hype train thing. But then they also want people to preview it. They'll be paying publications to run, 4 to 6 page spreads on previews. Our reporter went and played it for 2 hours. Here's our preview, which essentially is great coverage for them, but then won't hand out the review at the end of it. They basically just don't want to face up to the music of handing out a full game before release.
The thing is, with Bethesda, yes, they're generally well loved, but if someone's going to wait for the review, they're going to be waiting a long time unless they read the big publications that had a head start with a preview event of some description. Because Bethesda games generally need tens of hours at least before you can write something coherent.
And as a journalist, you look at that time frame, and it gives you the sweats, because you think, Christ, I've got to. Our lifeblood is clicks, essentially. People reading our stuff, and you see that, and you go, well, if I've got any chance of getting a share of the viewership of a review for this game, I need to get it out on release or before release, along with all the other outlets. And it makes you pressured into playing, like they said, the first 2 or 3 hours and going, that's my impression of the game, when it's not even a decent chunk of it.
That's a fair point. I mean, if you take a lot of, especially RPGs, if you take a lot of RPGs in the first few hours, they can be awful. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, I can remember playing that, not liking it, and being convinced by a friend to give it another go, but to play more than a couple of hours, because it doesn't get good until you've played about 4 hours. And that's going to lead to a lot of people going, well, it's crap, because all they've played is the tutorial, because there just wasn't time.
Well, again, this is the thing about how the larger outlets will have played more of the game because they'll have been flown out there to play it. And also, we sort of live in a weird, like, hybrid industry where people rely half on the review score at the end of the day, but also rely half on watching streamers play the game a week before it comes out or a few days before it comes out to gauge their opinion by watching, gameplay footage. It's the death of journalism.
Well, could it be argued that there's a huge amount of people as well that are going to either buy the game or not buy the game either way, as evidenced by some of the reactions on our review of the latest Pro Evo. The only reason they'll be looking at the reviews is to argue with the score.
Well, you have that with any game. It's not down to how early or late the review comes out. There's always going to be people who wanted to buy the game before as soon as they found out it was announced.
Which is kind of like, is it a Bethesda almost kind of insinuating that actually reviews aren't as important anymore as getting it out to their partnered YouTubers? Because that seems to be something they make more of a fuss about.
I think another problem is that their games, well, Dishonored 2, for example, has pre-order rewards. I think it's unfair to ask people to pre-order a game without good review coverage a week in advance or half a week in advance.
Yeah, but I heard last week's podcast and everyone was salivating over Red Dead Redemption 2, which is available for pre-order already, and all we've seen is a couple of pictures and a trailer.
There's a difference between hype and buying it.
Correct.
Because I clearly wasn't buying it.
It's there's a difference between hyping about a game and actually pre-ordering it, though. But
that's true. But then, let's be honest, we all do that whole thing of we all say, no, never going to pre-order, never going to pre-order, never going to... Oh, there's a new Sonic out. Oh, I'm pre-ordering it. I'm just using it as an example. I'm probably the only one that's pre-ordered Sonic.
Oddly enough as well, the guy who writes it, Gary Steinman, used to be a video games journalist, so I don't know whether, he had any say in the matter, but...
Curiouser and curiouser.
Ultimately, though, do you think this will start a trend in the industry and you'll see other publishers doing it? Or do you think they'll, take a step back, see how reaction is, and then alter either way?
I think it depends. I mean, Bethesda's one company. They're by no means the largest share of the market. It's... The results of this policy we'll probably see the results of them when Dishonored 2 comes out. Especially since Dishonored 2, they've played up heavily about how the game is supposed to be played with multiple playthroughs, for example, to experience all of it and things like that. So we'll see whether it bites them in the ass when people only get to play a few hours of it because they're rushing to get it online. But I don't think that many publishers or developers will run that sort of policy. Really, I think it's something that it smacks of like, we don't think our game's good enough. To be honest, the game might be good enough, but what was the example? Mafia 3 that just came out. That didn't get released to press until the day after, wasn't it? Day after release.
We still haven't been sent a copy because the firm has said, we still haven't had codes sent in to us.
But yeah, and that wasn't sent out to press, and as far as I can recall, the day after, if not the day of release.
I think it was the day of, because I seem to remember seeing journalists rush out and buy it on the day, or as soon as they could start the review.
That shouldn't be a thing. That should not be a thing. Unless it's someone who works for either their own tiny startup publication where there's only like 2 or 3 writers, or a freelancer. Like, journalists should not be running to the shops to be buying video games. Oh, it makes me angry.
Yeah, I can say it's not like it's not like Bethesda is short of a few bob. If they're a small, struggling indie developer, then I could sort of understand that. But we're talking about an industry that's bigger than Hollywood now. I mean, they can afford to send out a few copies of the game, and it's like you say, it does kind of say to me, do they have complete faith in their game? Because we've seen examples. There was what was it last year that did exactly the same, that didn't send anyone review copies and then absolutely tanked? I wish I had more memory, but something else.
I can't remember.
I think it's the first knell of the or the toll rather, the first toll of the bell about around the idea of video games journalism as an industry. Because to me it seems like reviews. Well, maybe it's been this way for a while, but reviews don't really affect the sales of blockbuster games anyway. That's how I feel. And using people like YouTubers and other smaller gaming sites rather than the larger ones who do things via personality video journalism, as I like to call it, people in front of cameras and things like that, beautiful attractive people with beautiful attractive opinions. It's just a way to circumnavigate the idea of reviews affecting affecting sales. It's what makes it worse is that you can't trust, as much as people say you can't trust IGN, you can't trust GameSpot because they're all on the make, but you just got to look at the YouTube controversies that have happened this year to realise that YouTubers don't know their arse from their elbow when it comes to law, so you can trust them even less, whether they're being paid up in the hundreds or thousands or whether they're sponsored.
Well, there's no doubt that YouTubers are making money off of their videos because that's their whole thing.
Well, yeah, but I mean supplemental income.
I mean, you've only got to look at sort of the Donald Trump school of thinking to say actually there's an argument that IGN are less likely to be bribed because it would cost a lot more to bribe them compared to the YouTuber with only 10,000 subscribers that gets the preview copy.
Remember demos?
Yes, I miss demos.
Remember games being done?
I have an entire article in the works about the lack of demos nowadays, and one company backing the trend. So that'll come up soon.
Is that Nintendo? Because they released the Pokemon Special Edition demo thingy.
It's not. No, it's a small indie developer that I met at Gamescom. A little platform title called Scrap Garden, which has a demo coming out, which is an entirely different game based on the same universe. Kind of like Valve did with Half-Life, the original one. But they are very rare. And if they do come, it's generally the first hour, i.e. the tutorial levels. But I think that might be a subject for another pod, perhaps.
Perhaps. Or for your article, indeed. We're coming up to the halfway mark, so we'll shift on to our next news piece, which is the imminent/ongoing voice actors strike. I believe we've talked about this a while ago, a number of episodes ago on the pod, but after about 18 months of negotiations, I'm not going to go the abbreviation, I'll just go with SAG-AFTRA, which is the union representing actors who voice video game characters, have started a strike after some failed negotiations. They felt like a proper counteroffer hadn't been made. They're basically asking for what they call proper back-end payments, safer working conditions, as in letting them rest their voices, not giving them long hours, more transparency about the projects they're working on, and other such benefits, because they feel like they're major parts of video games. Apparently the video game industry, I don't know whether that's like a big conglomerate of some sort, didn't give them what they wanted, so now they're going on strike. And as with what happened a while ago, I believe it's about a year ago now, there are two very polarized sides with not much middle ground really on this issue.
I'm kind of in two minds on this one because it sort of makes sense that members of an actors' union would want to have an equality with other actors, but for me, there's a fundamental difference, and really, it should be more about equity rather than equality. Because how often do you buy a video game because it's got Nolan North voicing it, or it's got Sean Bean doing the narration? Like that doesn't like with a movie. You stick Morgan Freeman in something, loads of people will watch it because they love Morgan Freeman. But with a video game, you don't really do that. Possibly there's certain programmers that you follow. So I'd say there's an argument for residuals for particular programmers or particular graphics designers. But voice actors, I'm not quite so sure.
You say that, but Activision made a real big deal about Lewis Hamilton being in Infinite Warfare. You know, well-known Hollywood actor,
That's true.
F1 racer, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that make anybody want to buy Infinite Warfare?
I mean, to be honest, it'll be funny because he's as wooden as my the desk that my computer sits on. So,
I was wondering what you were going to say then.
Look, get your mind out the gutter.
He's got a bit of a sense of humour. He put bunny ears on someone in a press conference.
Yeah, well,
Let me stitch my sides back together.
I know, he's such a card.
a specific request by the union was something called a reasonable performance bonus, which meant that for every 2 million copies of games sold, there'd be an extra bonus payment to them, with a cap at 8 million units. The standard rate for video game voice actors is around $800, so about £800. There's no exchange rate at the minute, for a 4-hour recording session. But if you look at like game sales, only a very small number of games would trigger the secondary payments clause. But that idea has been refused essentially.
To be fair though, $1 an hour to read a script in a natural manner. Speaking as somebody who works in a call centre for their day job, if someone told me they were going to give me £200 an hour to read my script, I'd jump at the bit.
Yeah, but they're not in a 9-to-5 job. They're called in.
As and when, yeah.
Yeah, your average voice actor is coming in to voice a video game that they've only just started production on. So 2 years later, they're only then hearing the work they did,
and also knowing what game it was in.
And they've already spent the money that they were paid months and months and months ago.
And this is another thing that they bring up, is that a story by Vice actually brought up the guy who, I'm trying to find his name, the guy who...
Troy Baker.
No. Keith Farley, that was his name. Keith Farley was a voice actor who went in for an audition, read some lines, was paid for his work, and then a year and a half later found out that he voiced the main antagonist in Fallout 4. Had no idea, essentially.
So when you say some lines...
Yeah, well, you know, he did a 4 to 8 hour recording session, got paid his money, and then found out that he was in one of the biggest releases of the year. Because game companies, obviously to prevent leaks, they're very tight-lipped about what they're doing. But as Farley says in this Vice article, that despite voice actors talking for a living, they know when to keep their mouths shut, so it shouldn't really be a problem.
Yeah, when surely there'll be all sorts of NDAs that they have to sign, and all these contracts, keep your mouth shut for X number of whatevers.
Also, surely you'd work out from the context of what you spent 4 hours saying, what you were voicing.
I don't think so.
That suggests to me that he was paying very little attention to it, so he wasn't giving it his full focus. So he's not really helping the argument if he's saying that.
Well, if he voices Kellogg, essentially, in Fallout 4, who is a character who has... his lines don't really go into depth about the Fallout universe. You know, spoilers for anyone who hasn't played Fallout 4 yet, so cover your ears. But essentially, all he talks about when you speak to him is about your child being kidnapped, shooting your wife in the head, that he had a rough time growing up in like a post-apocalyptic world, and that, you know, he works for something called the Institute. You know, how are you going to piece together that that's Fallout 4 from that?
And his check said Bethesda.
That's true, I suppose.
It was probably done through a third party, I'd imagine.
Yeah, a fair point, I suppose.
He also says, I mean, I don't think this is as good a point as he's making, but he says, you know, directors will give voice actors the context they know for a scene. So, I mean, this is the thing, they're not given, like, a script with Fallout 4 starring so-and-so, they're just given a scene, a motivation, and told to read. But he says that some actors might not want to contribute to projects if they knew what the end product was, if it was, like, violent or, in air quotes, misogynistic, or something like that, or against
you
their
never
religious
told me
beliefs.
I would be voicing a Nazi.
Well, that's a
All
fair
those times
point.
I said Heil Hitler, I was being sarcastic.
Well, I mean, it's a fair point, though, I suppose, isn't it? Because if you take a game like Hatred, I have no idea who did the voice acting for that. It might have even just been the developers, but I imagine that a lot of people, if they were given that script as a read-through, would turn around and go, well, actually, I'm not sure this is the right project for me. And that's kind of not giving them the artistic freedom to decide whether or not a role is appropriate for them. That, I kind of get that. But also, as a gamer, I'd kind of quite like the voice actors to have read through the whole script, because surely only delivering things based on, like, this is your motivation, this is the words, just read them. Surely that's why we've got so many games with shit voice acting that doesn't gel with the other characters.
Or it might be a bit much asking them to read a 20,000 line script when they're only on 3 pages of it.
Yeah, okay. Maybe not the whole script for every actor, but at least sort of they should have read the whole scene that they're in, for example. They should be familiar with the universe, and I don't know, it for me, having this sort of disjointed, these are your lines, read them in isolation thing, that's if you did that with a television program or a animation or something, it wouldn't work, it wouldn't gel. And we do see that a lot with video games. It's definitely got better in recent years, but if they're going to keep doing things like that, it's not going to get much better.
I think that's a good point, because, you know, over the past sort of 5-10 years, the video games have tried to become more and more serious and more recognised. It's not something that, you know, a select few do. It's very mainstream. And for it to be recognised as something in the lines of Hollywood or TV, Dominic, you mentioned, you know, it makes more money than Hollywood. People involved with it have to start acting like they're in Hollywood, which is why, you know, I can sort of agree that these voice actors are striking. They want, you know, they need more rights. They need black and white rules of what they're doing, how it's going to work. They can't, you know, flip-flop between one studio does it this way, another does it this way. It's all very confusing at the minute for them, I imagine.
There's one thing that I did note in their strike thing that we haven't touched on is the safety aspect. So we mentioned sort of vocal stress of the long sessions, but there's also a few examples that have been cited of motion capture safety. Because usually it will be the voice actors that end up doing the motion capture for whatever character they're voicing. And there's a lot of examples of people being asked to perform stunts, sort of like, you know, falling from being shot and being thrown out of windows and, you know, all kinds of acrobatic stuff that you see in games with no safety stunt coordinator on set at all. And it's led to people getting quite serious injuries.
That is a fair point. And I think as well that goes into the idea I think we spoke about the last time we talked about voice actors, which was that for a lot of them their faces are mocapped as well. So essentially that's them in the game.
It's real acting, yeah. I think putting someone in physical danger of harm, that's unacceptable. It doesn't seem to be what they're leading on, but it's definitely something that for me is sort of a big crux to the argument that you should never put another human being in harm for the sake of a game.
Unless they're well paid, well trained.
Yeah.
And have a stunt coordinator.
And have a stunt coordinator to make sure that any risk of harm is minimised, yeah.
I'm a little bit conscious of time because we've got the games which will suck, but I just want to touch on something for about 5 minutes as well, is that people have been saying that the usual argument that's brought up against this is, what about the developers? And that's something that I think could be quite interesting. If the voice actors gain some extra rights, some contract protection, some pay protection, then surely the developers who, arguably are also downtrodden on in most cases, kicked out of studios, their jobs are on the line all the time, maybe there'll be some sort of large action by them or a unionised movement by them, which could shake up the industry quite heavily. Imagine a developers' strike like the writers' strike.
I think it's something that needs to happen. Very often the developers, so before the developers are what make a game. There's only a few that really kind of put their name out there as being, this is my game. But you look at somebody like Sid Meier, for example, if his name's on the front of a game, a lot of people will buy it because it's Sid Meier and he makes great games. And I think they've probably got more of an argument than voice actors, because a good developer will make you go and buy a game again.
I've got this vision in my head of a whole year's worth of awful video games coming out because developers went on strike.
Big Rigs Over the Road Racing 2.
But speaking of awful games, it's time for games which will suck, and this is the November edition. There's a lot of hefty games coming out next month, so let's have at them. In fact, let's have at Dishonored 2, since we've been having a go at Bethesda. Anyone think that's going to suck, or is everyone actually looking forward to it?
I didn't play enough of the first one to
I didn't play the first one either, and I'm sold.
This is good because I got the first one. I got the first one for free using my Steam wallet by selling trading cards, and then played about an hour and a half of it and went, yeah, this ain't for me.
It seemed all right. Wasn't a great game. Wasn't an awful game. I think it's very much it exists.
Yeah, there's some big games coming out, but there's plenty of crap in amongst them. One like is big and crap. Closer to the start of the month, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare.
It'll have guns
Halo
in it.
8 or whatever.
It's going to sell like hotcakes because of the remastered freebie.
I think the strange thing about Infinite Warfare, though, is that although to be fair, it might be just the circles I run in and the circles I see online, but it seems that there's been a bit of a dampening of enthusiasm about Infinite Warfare from even the people who buy and play COD every year, especially with the whole look, it's basically Halo. People pointing out things that have been ripped directly from Halo and the success of Battlefield 1 as well.
Yeah, I've seen more people hyped about the re-release of Modern Warfare than about the different direction that Infinite Warfare is going in, which speaks for itself, really.
Well, let's be honest, it is an Infinite Warfare. Sorry, it's a Modern Warfare remake with a free bonus game set in space.
Moving on from that. Oh, unless you have anything else to say about it.
Well, no, I was going to suggest to move on because it comes out at exactly the same time as another game, which is clearly going to suck. Football Spreadsheet Simulator 2017.
Well, you say that, but early look at a draft of our upcoming review looks fairly promising. I can't say more than that because of the embargo. But other than that, there's Senran Kagura Bon Appetit full course.
Oh, fucking hell.
No, I did not mean to say appetit. It is a booby game, and so it's called
it's actually Appetit. Oh my god.
Oh dear God. When we have got to the stage, haven't we now, where they're just not even pretending that this is pornography, pretending to be a game. It's just... Like, don't get me wrong, I like naked ladies. I spend a reasonable amount of time looking at them because I'm a male with an internet connection. But It doesn't make for a game. It's just no.
It's a fighting game. This one's a rhythm game with cooking.
Oh, good.
And it's the Steam release of a 2-year-old Vita game.
Oh dear God.
I'll get you a copy.
Oh no, please. For
Too
the
late.
love of all that is good in the world, please don't get me a copy.
Now you're definitely getting one.
Merry Christmas.
Oh God, please! If I get you in the Secret Santa, I'm just going to hang myself.
Blimey, it's a bit drastic. Some more VR games coming out next month.
We have the first of the 10-year delayed games. The second being Last Guardian, which is out in December, but the first is Final Fantasy 15.
Oh yeah, that looked. Yeah. Ubidom and I stood by and watched a cutscene at Gamescom of it, and both unanimously agreed that it looked a lot worse than what they've been showing.
Really?
See,
Did you play the demo though? Even on the big screens, it wasn't running right. There was sort of like pop-in and all sorts.
There was pop-in, it had awful... There was no AA, everything was really jaggy. NPCs had that same like waxwork face that all Final Fantasy NPCs have had since the beginning of time. All the main characters look exactly the bloody same. It's just... I mean, to be fair, we can't really base everything on a 2-minute snapshot, but... We did.
Quite a big game, I think. Yeah.
That was all we could really stand, though. We were like, right, that's enough of that. We've got more important things to do.
Like JRPGs, I've never got on with. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but it just doesn't sit well with me.
Just nothing will compare to Final Fantasy X for me. So
I think the glory days of Final Fantasy are definitely gone. But did you not play the demo? Because the demo was excellent. I thought it was really, really good. So, going by that from like actual gameplay, that was promising for me. I mean, I don't know. There's still time for them to mess it up. Okay. Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
I'm still holding out that 15 is going to be a return to form. It looks like they're putting a lot of effort into this, and I don't know. Maybe the trailer was just a misunderstanding or something, and it was
I just say
really early alpha.
That they delayed it from September because the director didn't want people who didn't have an internet connection to have to install a day one patch. What's the chances that this one is not going to have a day one patch, really?
I think that's lovely, though, to actually turn around and go, do you know what? We don't want a day one patch rather than banging the old shit out.
They're going to have one.
Every game has day one patches these days. And considering how fucking huge I imagine Final Fantasy 15 is going to be...
About 8 gig it'll be.
Yeah.
Well, Deus Ex was only, 4 gig?
Oh, only?
But 4 gig might not be that much, like, if you're downloading off of a decent FTP server, but if you're trying to get an update off a bloody Sony PlayStation network, then 4 gig is an overnight download still.
Watch Dogs 2 comes out twice next month. Consoles on the 15th and PC on the 29th.
Well, that's going to be fucking shit, isn't it?
I think it would have come out the following week, but I believe that Thanksgiving thing falls in that week. That's why there's nothing between 23rd and 29th.
Ah. You're a wise one. And has anyone got anything to say about Watch Dogs apart from it's going to be rubbish?
It looks all right. I mean, the first Watch Dogs looked amazing, and it was... And this one looks about the same as the first one, just a little prettier.
Yeah, I got to play with it for a decent amount of time in Germany. It's sort of... It's more of the same, perhaps takes itself a little bit less seriously, but then it goes just a bit too far when it's sort of, there's inside jokes and the character's the ultimate hipster and he's got a mate that just has an emoji as a face and, very typical, just a step too far.
Millennials, am I right?
Oh, tell me, he's got pink high tops on, square frame glasses, you name it. But they've made tweaks to the hacking. It's sort of, rather than just pressing a button, now you have 5 or 6 different options to hack one thing. So there's more variety in there. But whether or not this is the Assassin's Creed 2 to the Assassin's Creed 1 is another question.
I've got high hopes.
Speaking of Assassin's Creed 2, the Ezio collection is coming out towards the end of the month.
Middle of the month.
The 2 greatest Assassin's Creed games and Revelations in one box.
The one best Assassin's Creed game and the other 2 that milked it.
Brotherhood is better than 2, in my humble opinion.
I'll fight you. I'll fight you in real life.
I'm with Alex
I
on this.
liked it because I could just press L1 and then my bros would shoot everyone in the vicinity.
Jeez, press L1
to
and
not
tap
have
counter.
to bother playing.
I stopped playing when Assassin's Creed 2 said, "Oh, we can't access these memories at the moment. Come back later once you've bought them." DLC.
The killer of
you should
everything.
really play Black Flag, Ace. Black Flag is an absolute breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I'll get around to it.
Of sea air, you might say.
Play it, Ace, and pretend that you're not playing an Assassin's Creed game.
You're playing a pirate game.
Yeah.
I'd rather just play Pirates.
But it's a very, very, very good pirate game.
But so's Skies
Sid
of
Meier's
Arcadia.
Pirates.
Yeah, so's Pirates, but I'm not saying that Pirates isn't. I'm just saying that Black Flag is pretty. If you literally ignore all the story missions and play as a pirate,
I still think that was just going to be a random pirate game, and they thought they could stick the AC franchise.
To be
on
completely honest, I thought that the main story I actually thought was really well done, but most of the main story missions are filled with stupid fucking tailing missions and don't stray too close to them. Oh, don't go too far away. You're in a fucking ship that's like, it's got a 60-foot high mast, and it's just like, oh, don't get too close to them, they might see. It's like, what are they, blind? Are they all like nearsighted? And that everything outside of like 20 feet away from them is just a big blue blur? It makes no sense.
They don't have a spyglass.
Yeah, apparently not. Yeah, but other than that, absolutely great game. Loved it. It's like my favourite after Assassin's Creed 2. So, and as far as I'm concerned, there were no games made after Assassin's Creed 4.
So Assassin's Creed 3 was still made.
Unfortunately, yeah. But 3 was necessary for the story in 4, so I can let them go with that one. Yeah, other games coming out next month before I start waxing lyrical about Black Flag again.
There's a new Harvest Moon. It's got all complicated now, isn't it? Because you've got the Matsusumi and the Xseed games. There's one by Matsusumi, the original Japanese developers, and no one gives a shit anymore.
Well, maybe. As like, what's that other one? Stardew Valley? Has that sort of taken over the sort of Harvest Moon thing?
I think it has, yeah. Everyone's got fed up with Harvest Moon not really going anywhere, and they've gone, we'll move over to Stardew Valley.
Or Farmville. Or whatever Farmville is now. What else is spurting out of the anus that is video games next month? Planet Coaster.
Now that looks like it's going to be excellent. I'm quite looking forward to that one.
Topple the Roller Coaster Tycoon throne?
I think it might well do. It's made by the developers of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which is one of the best loved successor of the series.
I thought that was one of the best ones as well, the third one. I've been watching Nerdcubed has been playing a lot of the beta of it, and there's some really, really good stuff in it. It's looking tremendously good fun.
I like that the developers have come out and said that they didn't want to use the word tycoon because it's been besmirched by too many poorly received tycoon games. Don't know whether that was throwing shade over at the mobile version of Roller Coaster Tycoon, but
possibly just all of the small developers making something tycoon
it's like something
because they never
thought
thought
to.
Yeah, that presumably they never thought
Or
to copyright something Tycoon as a franchise, and anyone and their dog can now do a Tycoon game.
It was probably aimed at Roller Coaster Tycoon World, which came out and then got canned because it swapped developers or something.
Did that actually come out in the end, or did they
I
postpone
think it might be out, actually.
Well, that did well, didn't it? Two games journalists aren't completely certain if it came out or not.
It is out in early access with mostly negative reviews.
Yay!
Apparently, Planet Coaster's already grabbed itself $2 million, so just from their alpha. So obviously they're doing something right.
Well, it's by Frontier Developments who make Elite Dangerous, and I enjoy that, so I wish them well with this.
Worth a look in. Hopefully we'll be able to get some sort of something for GameGrin about it. That would be nice. Anything else anyone wants to talk about? I thought there's lots of games here that I've never heard of, so it'd be a bit weird to sort of start ripping on them. Didn't someone... Oh no, Cal played Tyranny at Gamescom, didn't he? So well... Damn you, Cal! Who would have been useful for the voice acting bit as well, but never mind.
There's a few here that I played at Gamescom and actually were quite nice, or saw at Gamescom, so it's not a bad month for smaller games. But I'm well aware this is games that will suck, so I'm not going to mention all the good games.
It's always been games that are coming out next month.
Well then,
really?
We're completely ignoring Pokemon Sun and Moon, which look like they're going to be really good. Because they're Pokemon, and Pokemon games are always really good.
I guess, but in the fact that Pokemon games are always such a consistent level of good, does that just make them boring?
I suppose, in a way, Pokemon are like the Iron Maiden or the status quo of video games. It's always the same shit that you had before, but that's okay. That's why we like them.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, I'm not going to go out of my way to buy a 3DS to play Pokemon. I think I stopped playing Pokemon with, like, Leaf Green and Fire Red back in the days.
Well, Pokemon X and Y are some of the two biggest selling 3DS games. Still, nothing's come out that's beaten them yet. I do believe that Sun and Moon are gonna beat it.
I guess so. I mean,
it's being released the month before Christmas when everyone's
that's true.
3DS.
Yeah. I suppose no series quite props up Nintendo's hardware quite like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Also, I know they've said that the Switch isn't going to replace the 3DS, but realistically, it probably will. I'm still not believing that, so could it be like sort of the final big swan song, the last big release for the 3DS?
Well, we'll find out more in January the 11th, 13th, something like that, when Nintendo hold their big Switch press conference.
That's a week after my birthday. Where are they holding said conference?
I cannot remember. I did not read the entire email.
Fair enough. Well, just throwing it out there, it's a week after my birthday, so, if you don't want to buy me a present.
13th of January, live from Tokyo. And streamed online.
Well, I know what I'm doing on the 13th of January then.
Staying up to watch the Switch.
Hell yeah. That looks like it's great. Talking of Nintendo and 3DS games, the new Mario Party on the 3DS, Mario Party Star Rush, is coming out, which looks like it's going to be about as good as the other Mario Parties on the 3DS, i.e. not very much at all.
Innocent 10 out of 10. Game of the year.
They killed Mario Party with 10 last year, and Star Rush looks like it's going to be about the same. It looks better than 10, but then, to be fair, I struggled to find a game that was worse than Mario Party 10. That game where you just put the Wiimote on a flat surface and tapped it was better than Mario Party 10.
Anything more to add from anyone?
Really padding the end of this podcast, Alex.
Well, you know, people got to give the people what they want. Hour-long show, guys. Quick, sing.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. I do like to be beside the sea.
Keep going while I look at Reddit's games thing to see if there's any news. Titanfall 2 won't have a season pass. How about that? All post-launch maps and content will be free.
Well done, EA.
Yeah.
It's Titanfall. I can't get excited for it because Titanfall 1 was
apparently
mediocre.
It's being received quite well. From the tweets from people who are reviewing it that I've seen. Probably not going to buy it, but, you know, good for them, I guess. Well, that didn't last as long as I expected it to.
Oh, there's one big one we haven't covered. Darksiders Warmastered. The re-release of Darksiders. That looks like it could be quite good.
Nah.
Nope. Nope.
No, okay, just me.
Tumbleweed. It's the UK finals of the ESL League this weekend. Yeah.
What games are on?
League of Legends. League of Legends, Overwatch, and Counter-Strike.
CS:GO. Yes.
Yeah, I remembered.
And this is the first Overwatch ESL tournament.
Sure is. It's going to be interesting. I will be talking to the two finalists, or two teams rather. So hopefully there'll be a lovely review filled with Overwatch meta talk, which I know everyone loves. And we'll also have coverage for League of Legends and interviews and stuff with the games that are there, and lots of lovely trying not to be creepy, taking pictures of people in costume for the gallery.
Be sure to get consent.
There's implied consent if you attend the event.
No.
There is.
Not at San Diego Comic-Con.
There is at MCM. I checked the terms and conditions.
Oh, fair enough.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. I'm not going to go around. I'm going around in a GameGrin t-shirt, being like, "Excuse me, can I take a photo?"
I like your top very much.
To be fair,
I can see your boobs.
That GameGrin t-shirt makes a huge amount of difference to the amount of people who say yes when you ask, "Would you mind if I took a photo of your cosplay?"
Any mildly official t-shirt works.
Yeah, the difference that I got when I had GameGrin stuff on compared to when I didn't, now it just looks like, if I haven't, it just looks like some fat bloke wants to take a picture of the girl with the scantily clad outfit on.
So I'm just going to get a white t-shirt and in a biro I'm going to write IGN. And then I can get anywhere in any convention.
With with a backwards G on it and like a little smiley face. Write it in crayon. Just for effect.
We're just kidding, IGN. We love you, but not really. There we go. With that, we've hit the time. You can all zone out now, listeners. You've hit the hour-long mark. I'm sure you definitely hung out for the last 5 minutes of the podcast.
Do we get extra money for the vocal stress of an hour-long podcast?
Oh, topical. No.
Oh.
Go on strike. Let's see if I care. I'll do a one-man show.
I'd say I'd go on hunger strike, but you've seen the size of my gut. That's not happening.
Yeah, well. Right. The end of the podcast. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Ace, Ubidom, and Dominoid, and I've been your host, Hamiltonius. Remember, if you want to get in touch with the GrinCast directly, you can find us on Twitter at GrinCast. There's no guarantee we won't reply in GIF form. If you want to get in touch with GameGrin, you can find GameGrin at GameGrin on Twitter, or on Facebook, and YouTube, just search GameGrin, where the podcast is posted up, and we've got a lovely new series of videos going up there every week, giving lists of best horror games, best new games, best characters, things like that. Remember to check out the GameGrin website, where the podcast is hosted, along with lots of lovely reviews, previews, and articles about the video games industry. And remember to check out Game On magazines, which do awesome magazines for a number of specific games and about the industry at large. That's it for this week's podcast. We will see you next week, which will be the first week of November. We're getting along quite quickly this year. Can you feel the Game of the Year tension building up? Because I certainly can. But that's not till December, so I'll leave you with the hype. So until next week, game on.